Have you ever watched someone make a choice and instantly know it would be their last? It wasn't the mountain that killed him. It wasn't the cold or the storm or the thin air. It was one decision, one moment of pride that turned a dream into a death sentence. His name was Ethan Cole, a 37-year-old climber from Colorado. He wasn't a rookie. He'd summited Everest, Denali, and even attempted K2 once before. But this time, in the summer of 2024, with perfect weather and a strong team, he thought he finally had the mountain figured out. He didn't. K2 doesn't forgive arrogance. And what began as a calm, golden sunrise at Camp 4 would soon unravel into one of the most haunting stories ever whispered across the Karakoram. Before we dive in, this is K2 Stories, where every climb is a lesson written in ice and blood. If you love true mountain tales that reveal the raw edge between survival and tragedy, don't forget to subscribe, because this one will make you question everything you thought you knew about courage. Now, let's go back to where it all began. It was July 19th, 2024. The mountain was unnaturally still. No wind, no blizzard, just a deep, eerie silence that made even the Sherpas nervous. Ethan Cole stood outside his tent at Camp 4, staring at the pyramid shadow of K2 stretching across the ice valley below. He had waited years for this moment. The weather window was perfect, the kind climbers dream of but rarely see. The radio chatter buzzed with excitement. Dozens of climbers preparing for the final push. "Tonight we go," his teammate Ravi Singh, an Indian mountaineer, said with a grin. Ethan smiled back. "Yeah, tonight, K2's mine." But even as he said it, a flicker of doubt crawled into his mind. The team had lost oxygen bottles 2 days earlier, buried somewhere under collapsing seracs at Camp 3. Ravi suggested turning back, waiting for another team to share their supply. Ethan refused. "We've come too far. We make do with what we have." That was the first decision, the first step toward disaster. At 8:30 p.m., the group began their summit push. The air temperature plunged to 30 degrees Celsius, and the world narrowed to the beam of Ethan's headlamp. He moved with determination, his crampons biting into the ice as if he could carve destiny itself into the mountain. By midnight, they reached the bottleneck, that infamous stretch of near-vertical ice beneath a massive hanging serac, a frozen wall of death waiting to fall. Every climber knows this section. Every climber fears it. Ethan radioed down to base camp. "Visibility's good. We're moving fast. No wind. Should summit by sunrise." But Ravi's voice cracked through the static. "Ethan, we're too exposed. Let's wait an hour." The serac's groaning. Ethan looked up. He could see faint cracks shimmering in the moonlight. The sound was like glass bending under pressure. "Still," he said. "No time. We go now." He didn't know it yet, but other teams behind him had already turned back, sensing instability in the ice. Ethan's ambition blinded him. He wanted to be first to the top before the crowds, to plant his flag and prove that courage could outmatch caution. 1:45 a.m. The serac groaned again, a deep, thunderous moan that made the ice vibrate beneath his boots. Ethan froze. For a moment, the entire mountain seemed to hold its breath. Then, silence. "False alarm," he whispered. They kept climbing. By 4:10 a.m., dawn bled slowly across the Karakoram. The peaks glowed gold, and Ethan could see the summit, so close, just 200 meters away. Ravi was slower, coughing, oxygen nearly gone. "Take my spare bottle," Ethan offered, knowing it was his last full one. Ravi shook his head. "You go. I'll catch up." Ethan hesitated. For a brief human moment he wanted to turn back, to help his friend down. But the summit, that cursed, beautiful summit, pulled him like gravity. "I'll be quick," he said. "Then we'll descend together." 6:02 a.m. Ethan Cole stood on the summit of K2, 8,611 meters above sea level. The sky was blue, the wind calm. He raised his GoPro, filming himself crying, laughing, shaking. He had done it, finally. But the celebration was short-lived. The descent from K2 is where most climbers die. Ethan knew that, but fatigue, Dehydration and euphoria clouded his judgment. He lingered on the summit for nearly 40 minutes, too long in the death zone. His oxygen gauge ticked down. When he finally began descending, the light had shifted. Shadows stretched long across the bottleneck. Then, the first sound of falling ice echoed through the valley. A serac was collapsing. He radioed down. "Base camp. I see ice falling near the route. I'm moving fast." Static. Then silence. Ethan tightened his harness, clipped into the rope, and began his descent, unaware that the fixed lines below had already been shredded by the avalanche of ice. What followed was chaos. One climber behind him screamed, a sharp sound cut off by the roar of falling debris. A wall of snow and ice thundered past, shaking the rope like a whip. Ethan clung desperately to the slope, gasping, his oxygen mask frosting over. When the noise stopped, he looked down. The route was gone. So were the climbers below. He was trapped. A single misstep from the summit of his dreams had turned into a frozen nightmare. At 7:12 a.m., Ethan Cole realized he was utterly alone on the world's most dangerous mountain. The icefall had erased the route, the fixed ropes were buried or snapped, and Ravi's radio was silent. He pressed the talk button again and again. "Ravi, come in. Do you copy? Base camp? Anyone?" Nothing. Only the hollow, windless quiet of K2's upper slopes answered him, a silence so heavy it felt like it was pressing down on his lungs. He forced himself to breathe slowly, counting each exhale through the mask. He checked his gauge. Less than 30 minutes of oxygen left. That was when panic clawed at the edges of his mind. He looked down the bottleneck, where shards of ice glittered like shattered glass. The rope line was gone, the slope below a sheer 50-degree drop, leading into nothingness. The only way down was to climb unroped. "Easy," he whispered to himself. "You've trained for this." But he hadn't trained for exhaustion like this. His legs trembled uncontrollably. His fingers were stiff, blue under the gloves. He could feel his heartbeat pounding in his ears, that desperate rhythm that every mountaineer knows means one thing: the body is dying. Then came the whisper. Not real, but clear as day. "Ethan." He froze. It was Ravi's voice, faint, echoing through the static of his dying radio. "Ethan, don't go down that way." He jerked his head, scanning the slope. No one. He shook his head violently. "No, no. I'm hallucinating. Stay focused." He tried to move, digging his crampon into the ice. It slipped. He fell forward, his axe catching the edge of a serac just in time. His heart stopped. For a long moment he just hung there, suspended between life and death, gasping, sweat freezing on his skin. Then he saw it, a single oxygen cylinder, half buried in snow 20 meters below. "Ravi," he muttered. It must have been Ravi's. Maybe he'd dropped it before falling. Ethan's mind raced. If I can get to that bottle, I can live. He crawled, slowly, carefully, each movement deliberate, methodical. The world around him blurred into shades of white and blue. The sun climbed higher, but there was no warmth, only blinding light reflecting off the snow. He reached the cylinder, hands shaking as he brushed off the ice. It was dented, frozen shut, but still had pressure. He replaced his own empty tank, inhaled, and for a moment, the sweet rush of oxygen brought clarity. Then he saw something that stopped his heart again. Just a few meters below, tangled in a rope, was a body, the red downsuit, the torn glove, the ice crystals forming around the face. It was Ravi. His friend's eyes were half open, glazed with frost, staring up at him. Ethan screamed, a raw, guttural sound that vanished into the thin air. He reached down, shaking the body, shouting Ravi's name over and over until his own voice cracked. But Ravi was gone. Ethan's mind fractured. The reality hit him with brutal force. He had pushed too hard, ignored the warnings, forced the climb when everyone else turned back. And now, Ravi was dead, because of his decision. He sat beside the body for what felt like hours, rocking back and forth, whispering apologies into the wind. His radio crackled once, a faint voice from base camp. "Ethan, this is Mike. What's your position? We lost visuals after the Serac fall." Ethan pressed the button with numb fingers. "Ravi's gone. Root's gone. I'm stuck above the bottleneck." "Can you move down?" He looked at the slope again, a wall of ice, broken and unpredictable. "Not without ropes. I'll find another way." "Copy that. Stay put. We'll try to coordinate a rescue." But Ethan knew there would be no rescue. No helicopter could reach this altitude. No one could climb up in time. He sat beside Ravi, staring at the horizon where the morning sun turned the peaks golden. The beauty of it felt cruel, mocking him. And then something in him broke. He took out his GoPro again and pressed record. His voice was quiet, almost calm. "My name is Ethan Cole, July 19th, 2024. We reached the summit, but we made a mistake. We should have waited. I should have listened." He paused, his breath fogging the lens. "If someone finds this, tell my family I'm sorry. Tell them I was wrong." He stopped recording. For a long time, there was nothing but silence, the kind that makes the world feel too big, too empty. Then in the distance, thunder cracked again. Another Serac shifting, groaning, warning. The mountain wasn't done yet. Ethan stood, strapped his ice axe to his wrist, and stared down the slope. There was no one coming, no way back, and only one direction left to go. He began to descend. Each step, slower. Each breath, shallower. Each thought, heavier. And somewhere between life and death he started to see things. Faces in the snow, voices whispering from the ice. K2 wasn't just a mountain anymore. It was alive. And it wanted him. By 9:45 a.m. the sun was blazing over the upper slopes of K2, but the warmth never reached Ethan. He moved like a ghost, one trembling hand after another, ice axe clanging against the slope as if the mountain itself was beating time. The new oxygen bottle was almost empty. Each breath was a negotiation with death. He could feel his mind slipping, thoughts fragmenting like pieces of falling ice. "Keep moving," he muttered. "Down, just down." But the path below him wasn't a path anymore. The avalanche had erased everything. Ropes, anchors, footprints. Only chaos remained. The snow crunched strangely underfoot, hollow in places, as if something waited beneath the surface. Then he heard it again. "Ethan." A voice, closed this time, clear, human. He froze. His eyes darted around. "Who's there?" No answer. He climbed lower, and that's when he saw movement. A figure in an orange suit, maybe 100 meters below, waving slowly. Ethan's heart leapt. "Hey! Wait! I'm here!" He began descending faster, fumbling with his gear, almost running down the icy slope. The figure seemed to be moving too, disappearing behind a ridge. When he reached it, the figure was gone. Only snow. Then he looked down and saw an old tattered backpack half buried in ice, its logo barely visible. K2 2008 Expedition. His breath hitched. That was impossible. That expedition, he remembered it, the one where 11 climbers had died under the same Serac collapse 16 years earlier. He knelt beside the pack, brushing away frost. Inside were fragments of gear, a rusted carabiner, a frozen glove, a note sealed in plastic. It read, "If you find this, tell my wife I tried to come home, but K2 doesn't let go." Ethan stared at it for a long time. The letters blurred, the words twisting as if the mountain itself were whispering through the paper. He looked up again, and there they were. Figures. Dozens of them, scattered across the slope, standing motionless, faces hidden by goggles and frost. He blinked, and they vanished. His pulse spiked. He stumbled backward, nearly slipping into a crevasse. He screamed into the void. "You're not real! You're not—" A gust of wind cut him off, howling like 1,000 voices. It wasn't just the air moving. It carried something, faint and almost melodic, A chorus of whispers, calling his name. Ethan. Stay. He collapsed onto his knees, gripping his helmet. His mind was breaking apart, a slow, beautiful unraveling of reason. Every choice he had made, ignoring Ravi, pushing higher, refusing to turn back, echoed now like a curse. He tried to think rationally. Altitude psychosis, he told himself. You're hallucinating. Keep moving. Get below 8,000 meters. But the mountain wouldn't let him. The slope tilted steeper, forcing him to downclimb on hands and knees. The snow under him cracked, a sound like breaking bones. He froze. Then it gave way. For 2 terrifying seconds, he was weightless, tumbling, spinning, sky and ice blurring together. He smashed into a ledge, pain exploding through his ribs. His backpack tore open, gear scattering into the abyss. When he came to, everything hurt. His left arm hung useless. Blood stained his parka. But he was alive. Somehow, he was still alive. The wind had picked up now, screaming across the slope. Clouds rolled in from the west, swallowing the sunlight. Visibility dropped to near zero. He tried to radio again. Base camp. This is Ethan. I fell. Below the bottleneck. I think around 8,000 meters. Static. Then, faintly, Ethan, can you move? Weather turning. You need to descend now. He laughed bitterly. You think I'm not trying? But as he spoke, something shifted in the wind, a sound like a breath right next to his ear. You shouldn't have come here. He whipped around. No one. Only snow. But behind him, faint in the fog, was a shape. Human-like. Still. Watching. He didn't wait to find out what it was. He began to crawl, one arm, one leg, one thought. Down, down, down. Hours blurred into eternity. The storm thickened, erasing all direction. Time didn't exist anymore. Only white and wind and fear. At one point, he thought he saw a light, faint, golden, glowing through the fog. A tent? A camp? Hope surged. He crawled toward it, gasping, dragging himself like an animal. The closer he got, the warmer it felt. He smiled, delirious, reaching out to unzip the flap, and found himself face to face with Ravi again. Frozen, smiling. Ethan screamed, falling backward into the snow. His oxygen mask slipped off, breath hitching, vision dimming. He lay there, staring up at the mountain's looming face. The wind eased for a moment and he thought he heard a heartbeat. Not his own, but the mountain's. Steady, ancient, unforgiving. He whispered, barely audible, "Please, let me go." The mountain didn't answer. It never does. By the time afternoon light faded into a gray storm haze, Ethan's world had shrunk to the few feet of snow beneath him. He couldn't feel his hands anymore. His boots were frozen solid. Every breath was agony, thin, sharp, and dry like swallowing knives. He didn't know what altitude he was at. He didn't care. All that mattered now was down. But there was no more down, only endless ridges of snow that all looked the same. His GPS was dead. His oxygen tank hissed emptily with every breath, mocking him. He slumped against a rock wall, his body curling in on itself. His mind was slipping between reality and something else. Something quieter, softer. He thought of home, the small cabin in Colorado, the scent of pine, the laughter of his daughter, Lucy, when she jumped into his arms after school. He could almost hear her voice now. "Daddy, did you climb your big mountain yet?" Tears froze before they could fall. "Yes, baby," he whispered. "I did." The radio crackled faintly. "Ethan, this is base camp. Satellite shows a storm building fast. You have to descend, now." He pressed the button weakly. "I can't. Lost the route. No ropes. No Ravi." Static. Then, "Copy that. We'll try to send a team up tomorrow. Just stay alive tonight." He laughed bitterly. "Tonight? On K2?" The sound echoed off the ice, hollow, fading, swallowed by the wind. He looked down at his hand. The glove was torn, skin beneath it gray-blue. Frostbite had already taken most of his fingertips. He remembered Ravi warning him days earlier. On K2, you don't fight the mountain, you survive it. And he had ignored him. That was the cruel truth, the stupid decision that had started all of this. Pride, ego, the need to prove something to himself, to the world. He had thought bravery meant never turning back, but now he understood. Bravery would have been saying enough. The storm thickened, snow whipping sideways. His headlamp flickered weakly, casting trembling light into the white void. He tried to stand, but his knees buckled. He crawled instead, dragging himself toward what he thought might be a ledge or a cave. The wind screamed louder, so loud it felt like voices shouting through it. Hundreds of voices, angry, mournful. He pressed his helmet against the snow, sobbing. "I'm sorry, Ravi. I'm sorry." When he looked up, he saw it again. That faint golden light through the fog. Only this time it wasn't a hallucination. It flickered, steady and rhythmic. A camp stove? A headlamp? His pulse surged. Someone's there. He forced himself up, stumbling forward. 10 meters, then 20, each step like walking underwater. He reached the light and saw a tent, half buried in snow, fabric shredded by wind but still intact. Inside, old gear, frost-covered sleeping bags, a torn Pakistani flag, a forgotten camp from a previous expedition. He fell inside, collapsing onto the icy floor. He ripped open a food pouch, frozen solid. His numb fingers couldn't hold it. He laughed weakly, a broken, rasping sound. Then he noticed something in the corner. A small, cracked camera, its lens pointed toward the opening. He picked it up. Inside, the battery was dead, but a memory card blinked faintly red. He pressed play. Static. Then, a voice, a man exhausted, whispering through oxygen hiss. "This is Amir Qureshi, K2 Expedition 2010. If anyone finds this, turn back. Don't do what we did. The mountain always takes what it's owed." Ethan stared at the frozen screen, realization spreading like frost through his chest. He wasn't the first. He wouldn't be the last. He leaned back, closing his eyes. Snow drifted through the tent flap, covering his boots, his legs. The warmth in his body faded slowly, not painfully but peacefully, like sinking into sleep. He thought of Lucy again, her smile, her laugh, the way she would tug his sleeve and ask, "Are you brave, Daddy?" He smiled faintly. "Not brave," he whispered. "Just foolish." His breathing slowed. The wind howled louder, then softer. The tent walls pulsed with each gust. He tried one last radio call. "Base, this is Ethan Cole. If you hear me, don't send anyone. The route's gone. The mountains, too dangerous. Don't risk more lives." Static. Then silence. He looked at the camera one last time, pressed record, and spoke quietly. "If anyone finds this, remember K2 doesn't kill you because it hates you. It kills you because you forget to respect it." He exhaled, a long, final breath. Snowflakes drifted across his face, soft and endless. His hand twitched once, then stilled. Outside, the storm screamed over the ridges, erasing all signs of his camp. The mountain swallowed him the way it always does, without anger, without mercy, without memory. And when dawn came, K2 stood untouched, shimmering beneath a sky so clear, it was almost cruel. Another name added to its silent tally. Another story buried in ice. When rescuers finally reached the upper slopes a week later, they found nothing, just fragments of rope, a torn glove, and half buried in snow near the bottleneck, a frozen GoPro. Its lens pointed toward the sky. The footage, later recovered and verified, showed Ethan Cole on the summit smiling through tears, whispering, "We made it." Then, the storm. Then, darkness. Then, silence. His final recording, discovered days later inside the broken tent, spread like wildfire through the climbing community. His calm voice, quiet, almost serene, became a haunting lesson for every climber who dreamed of touching the edge of heaven. If anyone finds this, remember, K2 doesn't kill you because it hates you. It kills you because you forget to respect it. That single line changed everything. It echoed in documentaries, in base camps, in the trembling hearts of those preparing for their own ascent. Because the truth is, it wasn't the mountain that killed Ethan Cole. It was his decision, his stupid decision, to believe that experience made him untouchable. K2 doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care if you've climbed Everest, or if the weather looks perfect, or if your heart burns with ambition. The moment you forget fear, the moment you think you are in control, that S when it reminds you who is really in charge. Somewhere up there, buried under layers of snow and time, Ethan still rests, along with Ravi and dozens before them. They're not gone. Not really. The mountain keeps them, as warnings, as whispers, as part of its endless white silence. And if you stand at the base of K2 on a still night, you might just hear it. The faint crackle of radio static carried by the wind, a voice saying, "Don't go up there." Because on K2, sometimes courage isn't climbing higher. It's knowing when to turn back. This was K2 Stories, where every summit hides a secret, and every story reminds us why the mountain is never truly conquered. If Ethan's story moved you, share it, so others never forget that one decision can mean the difference between glory and the grave. Subscribe for more true tales from the roof of the world. And remember, the mountain always remembers.